Let's give a hand for Melissa and Sean here this afternoon.
Wait, why clap? We haven't done anything yet. What if this is the most boring panel that's ever been hosted and people leave wishing they hadn't been here?
Well, I've been here for 2 straight days, so probably most of the ones...
In that chair?
Yes.
Can we clap for this man who hasn't slept in 2 straight days? That's a feat, and also horrifying.
Yes, exactly. As you're well aware, if you sleep in a chair, it kind of,
I think we should recognize the power we wield. We've now made them clap on command for 2 completely unrelated things. Can we clap for Campbell's tomato soup? Yeah! Look at this, man.
It's amazing.
We've got our own army here.
Exactly.
Amazing.
I mean, you might start, a band or something. You could do like claps and cheers and everything else.
I'm dropping everything.
The Campbell's Soup Band.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds great.
Absolutely.
We play Progresso Rock.
Progresso rock, yes, absolutely.
So one of you laughed, and I'm like, that was a soup joke. Like, I hope that's not funny. That's so lame. I'm a dad. Anyway.
Yes.
What technical voice acting advice would you give to yourself from the day you first started voice acting?
Wow. I would say to trust your instincts. And I mean, from my first job to now, I mean, I've definitely grown as an actor and as and I would say take care of your voice. I would say, don't be nervous. Because I think my first job, I was very nervous. So I would say, you're in the room and they cast you, and don't be nervous, and trust the gift of your voice, and don't worry about sounding like anyone else. That would be my biggest.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome.
Your family, your father was a jazz drummer.
Yes,
yes. And your siblings, actors, and you did dance for a little bit at Cal State Long Beach. How much of a musical influence was your dad on you, and the fact that jazz being such a free flow of being able to, maybe improv a lot too?
Improvise, yeah, absolutely. It's such a great question, and no one has ever asked me that. So, yes, I have a very musical family. So my dad was a jazz drummer, which, ironically, I'm married to a jazz drummer. So, but my brothers and I have 3 older brothers, and we were all raised on musical instruments. And my oldest brother is a jazz trombonist, and he's the only one who stayed with it. But I played flute for 9 years, and my other brothers played trumpet and clarinet. And so music was a big influence in our house, like big. And even when when we would stop playing, I always sang also when I was younger too. And then I was a dancer, and so my dad said, don't just be a dancer, you should sing and you should act as well. You should be a triple threat. And that always stayed with me, and so I've always been an actor, singer, dancer my entire career. And even to this day, I pull out dance as like the back pocket, like, oh, she's a singer and an actress, but she dances. So but music, yes, bringing music and segueing to being even a voice actor, your improvisational skills on the microphone, and being able to, when we do anime, we're matching, and it's, to me, very musical to listen to inflections, to watch the timing of matching the flaps. So I think music has played a huge influence in my entire career, and very much so in my voiceover career.
I'm sure you've noticed in anime, since you brought it up, like if a character says 3 lines in a row, you need to know how much they are talking, because it will often influence whether you do like an upward cadence or a downward cadence,
so
or
if
they're emphasizing a certain word or trying to make a certain point. As actors, if we notice that we're ending each of our lines the exact same way, we'll go back and say, hey, can I redo this line
Yes.
just to change the musicality on it? Because even though nothing is wrong with the way the line is said, our human ears are very attuned to a performance, a dance, the ebb and flow of a conversation.
So true.
And if it doesn't feel like the people talking are weaving through that dance together, it just feels wrong, even if there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, yeah, that's so true. And even just having a regular conversation, you don't always talk like this. We don't always talk with an inflection going up. But so there's that natural ebb and flow.
That's true. I mean, if you had ended that answer by going, I think that's my favorite part of being a voice actor,
it wouldn't work.
and then we'd be like, and?
Well, they would clap.
Right. Or they clap. Thank you.
Yay. We have them well trained.
Yes, exactly. You've moved your voice acting career and your acting career, and what I find interesting, because I've done these for a few years, is not a lot of people use the Twitch universe as a way to reach different types of fans.
That was so. I hate to say this, but I have to thank for that being possible, because I'm sure anyone in the audience can identify with this, where there's at least one thing in our life where we're like, man, I would love to do blank, but I can't because blank, whether that's because of time or because of money or because we don't know the resources. Like, there's something, and usually not a justified reason, that we use as an excuse to go, not right now, maybe another time. And then some of us go our whole lives without actually doing it because of fear or whatever else. And for me, the big barrier was, I don't know when I'd make the time, and I don't know how I'd make the space. Well, when the happened, all of a sudden, we all had way too much time. So I went, okay, well, that's not a valid excuse anymore. And I know I have the financial ability to afford it, so let's figure it out. While I have this opportunity, let's see if I can make the space for it. And of course, it developed from, something that I did to pass the time. Yeah, it's because I'm leaning back and talking, so my throat is drying out. I got my water. Also, stay hydrated. Make sure you drink water. You all should be drinking water very consistently. Drink more than you think you need. And it very quickly, as you mentioned, it became a way for me to kind of bridge that gap between my profession and my audience. One of the things I've always been a big proponent of is I don't believe in idolatry. I'm not a big fan of putting people on pedestals and going, oh, I could never be as good as you are. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings, and we all have different strengths and different things that we focus on. Perfect example being, we could not be here in this room holding this panel if it weren't for the people who built this infrastructure, for the electricians who installed the light, for the audio guy, mini clap for the audio guy, who is making us sound good on these microphones. And a lot of those are thankless jobs that don't get noticed. So all of that to say, this was my way of going, hey y'all, here's who I am as a person. Here's how I can bring you into my world and play around with the voiceover aspect of stuff. And I would say it has become kind of its own job in a sense, but communication has been a very big part of that, where if I'm open with my community and go, hey, I love getting to do this for you all, but the work has to come first. So when I'm busy with my job, that may mean I don't get to stream as often, but I hope you all can understand, if I'm not around to stream, that means it's because I'm thriving at my job, at the thing that I want to be doing as a human being. And they've been extremely supportive the whole time of that.
That's so cool. That's great.
And one thing I did read about you, Sean, is you were so humbled to the fact that someone wanted to use my voice. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were like, wow, someone, recognizes my voice and wants to meet me at these cons. And
Deborah Wilson, and if you guys aren't familiar with Deborah Wilson, you should be, because she is basically in every motion capture game you can possibly think of. She has a six word quote. It didn't have to be me. And any time that folks ask, like, what's a role that you wish you could play or that you wish you had been cast as, I can't answer it, because I look at this table spread of, all the characters I have played, Diluc, Mishima, Subaru, Draken, Kiyotaka, all of these characters. And I think of even just the colleagues who also auditioned for that role, who didn't get it, who aren't invited to cons for that character. And then I think of all the fans watching the performance going, oh my God, imagine if I could play a character like that someday, the same way that I was when I grew up on Toonami. I was back when Toonami was brand new. That's how old I am. So it is very much a humbling aspect to go, you know what? There are so many people who could have done just as good a job at this character, but they went with me. So the very minimum that I can do is show that I care, and whoever comes up to my table, when people ask, what's your favorite role? And I go, what is your favorite character? Because whether you know me from Pokemon or whether you know me from an anime or whether you know me from a video game, I always want to be able to go yes and say, here's a story that makes that project or that character important to me because they're important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean, looking at, one thing I read about you was, you did the Odd Taxi story. And, the thing that stood out to me was your willingness to trust something to come through. And that something will come of it, even, based on, it sounded like it was kind of maybe the fork in the road for you a little bit.
For Odd Taxi, elucidate a little bit by what you mean, my ability to trust something to come through.
Well, really your willingness to trust that something is going to happen after that to lead to...
Well, I'm still going to elucidate on that myself. Yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if it applies so much to Odd Taxi, because for me, Odd Taxi, the story for that is we are taught very often in this career to send it and forget it, which is statistically, for every success you hear us post about a character that we have booked, there is a graveyard of hundreds of auditions, many of which we felt really good about.
So
that
true.
Nothing came about. For example, the day that I drove up to Stockton for this convention on Friday, right before I left, I sent out 23 character auditions in 3.5 hours. Statistically, the likelihood, the number of them that I am likely to book is 0. That is the most likely outcome. But we have to have the same enthusiasm. All that to say, so we're taught very early on to pretend to act as though we've already gotten the gig so that we can give an authentic performance. And then as soon as we send that audition off, just move on. Because the assumption is that nothing is going to happen. But Odd Taxi was a case where I had seen the series before the auditions came out. And there were 2 characters that I was like, if this gets a dub and I do not somehow book one of these 2 characters, I will physically go into cardiac arrest because I so much identify. And Shun Imai, which was the one that I booked, was one of those 2. There was Shun Imai, who was the very chipper, supportive individual who really, wants to look out for people. And then there was Tanaka, the mobile game addict who spent thousands of dollars chasing a super rare black dodo. And I can identify with both of them for different reasons. So that is a case where in a show like that, I was extremely hopeful for once that I did book a role where it was like, I understand that any number of people can play this role, but no one can play this role as well as I can. Give it to me, you son of a... You know what I mean? But when it comes to having faith in following through, you touch on a really good point, because a lot of people who get into this craft are like, oh, my goal is I want to voice a lead role in a show. I want to be in a AAA video game. I want to be in this large-scale production. And there are some folks who kind of put blinders on and go, so anything I work on in the meantime, if it's an indie project, if it's a student animation, they're nice. They get the bills paid, but they're not what I want. They're not what I'm really aiming for. And that's not a very good philosophy to have, because, first of all, every project is important to the people making it. That's why they're creating something out of nothing in the first place. But the other reason is because you never have any true idea where your next opportunity can come from. And that's where it touches base on the having faith that if you do your best work, that people will notice and look out for you. How many of you have played the new Spider-Man game that came out most recently? Show of hands, anybody? Okay, cool. So I voice a bunch of guards, enemies, thugs. I got several sessions of work on that. But my invitation to that project came from this random indie game that was being dubbed for the first time. Literally does not even have a 1/100th of the audience market that the big game does. But because I gave my all on that smaller project and gave it the same care and attention, the owner of that project, who happened to be in connection with the team working on the big Marvel game, went, hey, if you need someone to fill in these battle efforts, you should hire Sean Chiplock, because he can absolutely nail what you're looking for. And that is a perfect example of you always have to have faith that doing good work will lead to good work, because passionate people love working with each other. They can tell that good results are going to come.
That is so, so true, and it's like you manifested it in that early with the game.
It's dressing for the job you want.
Exactly.
Melissa, do you have like a similar story of something you auditioned for that may have been more of an indie project that maybe developed into, hey, you know, I've worked with her before. Hey, you know, this has led to another, you know, gig or job or that sort of thing?
Well, you know, besides the theater, the big theater thing, I mean, yeah, I can't recall exactly, but I do follow your train of thought completely, and that the people are going to remember producers, directors, or whoever it is. Could be the girl answering the phone, checking you in, who then becomes a casting assistant, and then becomes and everyone talks to each other. So, you know, you always have to have your best foot forward. You have to be professional, and you have to be cool and nice and polite and considerate, and you've got to bring the goods like it's your last job. Like, you know, you've got to bring your A game every time, even if it's the smallest part, or you're playing a bunch of small incidental roles in the background. You're still giving 110%, and that is
to those characters, that world is their reality. It's all real to them.
Absolutely. And I think my mantra has always been, and even when I was young and like coming up in my career, you know, I always said, you know, I just want to be a working actor. Yep. I just want to be a working actor. And that there's a lot to be said for that, because a lot of people burn out, and a lot of people think, I haven't made it to this level by this age or this time or blah, 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 whatever it is. And they put all kinds of different little timelines and demands, and they could be goals. You can look at it that way, but then they could also turn very negative. And I always said, you know what, I am good. And if I have success, that's awesome. And you ride it. You ride it like a roller coaster.
Do you know the 14% statistic, Melissa? It is 14% of all actors work often enough that it can be considered their full-time career.
Profession,
which
yeah,
means
yeah.
86% of actors need some sort of supplementary income. It's not the norm.
Yeah,
so.
it's not the norm, and we're very lucky. We're very lucky to do what we do.
And we're very lucky to have both Melissa and Sean here. We are out of time. But
so sorry.
So soon.
So we probably should clap for them one more time.
Oh, but we'll clap for you.
Thank you.
Yes. And you can go talk to them upstairs for another couple hours here at StocktonCon. But I want to thank these two lovely actors to my right.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you for having us.
us. Great questions.
Thank you all for being here as well, because our career literally could not exist without your enthusiasm and your passion. Companies have to spend money when they put these things together, when they make English dubs of a lot of different things. And if they felt like they didn't need to, they wouldn't spend the money on it. So thank you, because your love and passion and enthusiasm and involvement is what makes something like this possible. And that's why we love sharing our time and stories with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Great stories.
Hi, that was a good warm-up. There we go. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
Absolutely, thank you. Oh, I always like talking about theater folks.
Slow, get up, call off stage.
Thank you. Absolutely, thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. I love all